Posey Gloves here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this Marshmello sound. It is a sound from a drop. I have my Edison over there. I'm going to show you how to make this lead sound. Right? Oh, I forgot to mute my monitors there. Here we go. All right, and this is my sound. Whoops, here's my sound. So you see, I'm like, mine's a lot brighter and stuff. It's also pretty loud. So I mean, let's just turn that down a little bit. And so you see, I'm like, I didn't nail it. Like, it doesn't sound like the exact same sound, but it's relatively close. Like, you can mess with the different elements. Now, I have a number of things going on here. I have a bell layer that is using several contact bell libraries. So if you don't have contact, you may need to try and synthesize some bells. I was not about to do that. I'd just rather just go and grab my bell libraries. Then I've got 3 harmers going. I have no idea if this is how he did it or did not do it. You got me there, but this is how I did it. And so I have the one that's called Marshmello sound, which is, it's a super saw or a unison saw wave, basically. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one up is sort of this organy type sound. It fills in, gives me more of that fundamental tone. This one happened, and then I created this one because I was listening to this thing a bit more. And if you listen to more of the track, you'll hear more of those bell tones coming out. So you'll be able to adjust this according to what you think more accurately captures that sound or fits in your track better. I've tried to do a couple of Marshmello sounds, and he always does this layering thing. And so it's always a little tricky figuring out what he did. Even though it sounds simple, it's kind of surprising how hard sometimes this can get. This last one is a square lead. It's very, if you listen to that, it's very apparent that it's in there. And so this is like, that's actually like the main texture. If you listen really closely, and if you listen to a couple other parts of the same drop, it's very apparent that this square lead's a big deal. So I went ahead and did that. And of course you can mix these things to taste, and that's why it gets confusing. And you can send it into your mixer and do various things to them in the mixer to them. I do not think I did too much in the mixer with these. On 23, nope. 25, nope. And I did do a little bit to, no, I didn't do anything to any of them, I don't think. Cool. So that is convenient for you. It's all self-contained. Now, let's just start off with this first one. It was a really simple move. I heard it, and I immediately thought super saw. Like, I was like, this is super saw. Now, I turned on the unison, and I did a couple things as I went to try and get closer and closer to the sound. First is I needed something that sounded similar in content to the content that was in the track that I was given. So, well, not given, the track that I am referencing. So for this, I created a similar sort of deal, a little run thing. And I ended up just settling on those couple notes, because whenever you try and do like a whole load of notes, you end up running into issues as far as like nailing the exact timing and stuff. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Sounds like this can sometimes get quite touchy with the attacks and releases and stuff. So I find it's easier to just focus on like a little phrase, like da-na-na, and then write in the rest of the phrase afterwards if I am so inclined. You'll also notice that on these things, they are made, one is, most of these are actually starting at C5. They have this do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. But on this one, the square is up an octave. So that's something to be aware of. And I actually took it down an octave. So you could just do that and write it at the same pitch. But I wanted to be weird when I was making it. It's one of those things that happens when I was making it. It probably didn't matter. If I were like creating a patch, that probably wouldn't have been that wouldn't have made sense as a decision. At least as much sense. Oh, okay, I'm wearing a hat. I forgot to say that. So let's talk about this. So first we have the super saw, right? Now this, I'm not going to touch this pitch knob. Well, I guess I can move it a little bit, but this pitch knob can get kind of touchy. I moved it up to 7. Originally, I think it was on 5, and I went to 7. And the way things lined up, because they'll start at the same time. So if you get a timbre that you like, this pitch knob will essentially change the pitch of all the different voices, and they'll sum differently. And as the result of that summing will change the timbre. And I quite liked this particular spot. I think it's well worth time just slowly scooting this guy up and down until you get a sound that you like. And so I hit this, and I was like, hey, that's great. But mine still sounded, it had quite a bit of low end. And so I ended up rolling off like just the smallest amount. For whatever reason, to me, that like made a large difference. Sometimes it's kind of ironic how small these moves are. I've made moves since in this patch, so maybe it's a less important move. But this is a generally Q curve I set on. So this was the first move I did. Came in here, set up an EQ with a little rise and a dip. And on the effects, this is another important move, is chorusing. So unison sounds different than chorusing because they do different, they do their job. They do a similar effect, but they do it differently, so they sound different. And I set mine like this. I took the speed down. I didn't want a high speed. I brought my depth up a little bit. I don't really usually touch these other ones too often. I'll probably come to this spread more often than not. But in this case, this is the particular sound I settled on with the chorus. And the reverb is like this. I believe I just brought the decay up and didn't touch anything else. Other things that I did. You noticed at the beginning that this is not a sine wave. What did I do? I emphasized the harmonic. I emphasized the lowest frequency. Because one thing that, if you listen to more of this, it's very, very like dun dun dun, like very pronounced sort of deal. So I wanted that low tone to be unmistakable, especially this was my first sound. I originally was going to try and do it all in just this patch, and then I realized there ain't no way I'm doing it in one patch. I'm not even going to bother trying. So, but that was one of the driving forces behind that move. Other than that, that's this patch. That's it. It's not that complicated. And I don't believe I touched the mixer on it. No, I did not. So we're good there. So done with that patch. All right, on to patch number 2, which is the second harmor. Now on the second harmor, I have this going on, right? And it sounds like this. Kind of a cool organ sound. And what I was going for here was that dun dun dun. I hadn't made the square patch yet, and I was still sort of fishing around for like what I think might have generated that sound. Later on, I was like, oh, it's totally a square pluck thing, and I was like, that's like one of the things harmor does best, is like that's what it does. So because I like their square tone. I mean, you could grab like citrus or whatever, but man, when I hear those sorts of sounds, I'm like, oh, because harmor's got this great pluck knob, and it's pretty much straightforward. You can make the same thing with the frequency, but at least the pluck knob has an interesting role to play in harmor for other reasons. You can go check out the pluck knob in my harmor from the ground up series if you're curious about why there's a whole separate knob for this. But anyways, I digress. So we're sitting here. I again messed with the timbre. This time, this is the main reason why it sounds the way it does, is I rolled off everything except these first couple harmonics. Now, these first couple harmonics are also the loudest ones by far. So these guys, if by moving this curve, I can get quite dramatically different timbres. And I'm going to leave it alone just because I don't want to mess up what I already have. The next thing I did that also contributes quite a bit to the texture is this harmonizers on. I didn't touch anything. I just moved it on. And it's just simply taking the harmonics and cloning them up according to the settings I have here. So that's without it. That's with it. It's a subtle deal. It's not like super big. You'll notice the frequency's been taken up an octave, so that's something to keep in notes. I rolled off some of the highs because this move was emphasizing them, and I wanted the effect, but only down lower. And so I'll do that. Now, subtle shifts in timbre like this, I'm beginning to get more and more of a feel for like what kind of subtle moves will do to my sound. But occasionally it's still just sort of a crapshoot. Try stuff, see what happens. So that's sort of what these moves were a combination of. You'll notice that over here on the unison, I just turned it up to 2 and left it there. I moved the pitch down because I didn't want like crazy, like some sort of a Reese type deal. I just wanted a unison sound. And the panning's been left quite wide, which is fine. On the effects, I've got a chorus, and you see the speed's been brought down. I'm not sure if it was at like 7 or whatever. It's been brought down very low, but the depth is pretty high. And so that's the particular sound I went for on this one. This is going to be a much more transparent chorusing effect. It's almost going to sound more like a phaser than a chorus in a setting like this, especially with an order of 1. And then we have a reverb. And so on the reverb, I just brought up the decay and called it good. There's a ton more going on in the track as far as mixing is concerned with the bass and all that junk. So I am not going to like be dealing with that. Then when you start throwing everything together, it starts getting way more complicated. Decisions are made. You spend a couple hours mixing it, and it's a very, very loud track. But it's also crystal. I think it's like pretty darn crystal clear for how loud it is. So I'm very impressed with the production quality that comes out of Marshmello's works. So, anyways, that is what's going on there. I mean, he better be freaking good. He's like super, super popular these days. And then the next layer is the bell layer. So here's those 2 layers by themselves. So that's what I had. And I was like, ah, man, it's like missing stuff, right? Because if I listen to this, and I'm like, oh, that's like there, but it's like not there. Like, what am I missing? And so I determined it was bells. And if you listen to earlier parts of the track, they've got these bells going on. And I'm like, oh, maybe because they've got like this sparkly texture that like shines at the beginning of every note, but it's only there for a glimpse, like bom, 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 like, but it's not like bwah. It's like a little sparkle. Like imagine like Team Rocket flying off into the distance and then Twinkle disappears. That kind of a sparkle. So I decided to try it with bell layers. So I opened up 3 libraries. I literally just started grabbing my bell libraries. And I actually have a quick load menu and I have a bells folder. And these are just things that I reach for all the time. I'm just constantly going in here. And in fact, I have several things I want to add to this that I'm going through because I have a lot of third-party stuff. And there's no way I'm digging through folders to get to that. So you right click to get to the quick load. If you're not used to this, I highly recommend setting one up. I go to it so often now that like I try to eliminate the browser and only use the browser when I'm going for something that I just don't normally grab. Like I don't go into the Session Horns Pro folder all that much, except for I do grab the trumpets from here. So I don't know, maybe you consider doing that. But in the bells folder, I loaded up the first couple, and you see I have the Celestia, the Glockenspiel, and then Jonathan's Glockenspiel. And Jonathan's Glockenspiel is actually a free one, and then these two come with contacts. So this is all stuff that you could potentially have. So you can go look up Jonathan's Glockenspiel. There's actually a really cool pad patch that comes with it. And I combine those, and if you play these, and if you play lower notes, because they don't all overlap. And so as I get higher, it'll trigger other libraries and stuff. And I turn the CC ghosting off. If you use BRSO Articulate, it's in my free plugins. I highly recommend using it if you're a contact owner and use FL or any DAW. I think this is just like awesome. So, the Synthetic Orchestra made it specifically for use in FL, so you could take advantage of some features FL offers you. I'm not sure. I've never really tried using it with any other DAW, but maybe it'll change. It was a game changer for me, for sure. So that's in there, and with that added, you get this sound. And you see it's a really subtle thing. I actually took it down quite a bit. If I turn it up, and now you can hear, I hear some aliasing in there. And so I'm not sure if it's aliasing, but it sounds like aliasing. Anyways, oversampling might be able to fix that. I'm not sure if it's in one of the libraries or if it was there before and I just now noticed it. But moving on. So the last one, and this is arguably probably the most important one, when I heard this, because I was listening to other parts and then I scooted over to that part and I was like, there's a square pluck in there. That's like the secret. It's actually mostly a square pluck. If you listen to the beginning of a drop and judge your sound design off of like the first beat, there's usually a crap ton going on, right? Because there's just a riser and it hits, and then there's drums and usually some sort of an impact and new leads, new basses, new everything. So it's wise to sort of move in a little bit. And that's when I moved in, a lot of things became a lot more clear. But I added in this pluck, and this pluck sounds like this. Whoa. Panic attack. So that's what it sounds like. But if we go up. Now, his pluck has quite a long deal going on. It definitely sustains out. So I was like, I need something like that. But he plays high notes, and these high notes and harmor become more like sine waves because as you get higher and higher, more of those harmonics fall outside the audible spectrum. So that's what we're doing here. And so as we get higher and higher, it's less and less like, it's still definitely a square, but it's also got some pretty strong resemblances to a sine wave. And so I definitely detected some hint of this. You'll notice I'm taking advantage of the multiband compression, bringing up the lows and mids. I'm trying to pop out that lower stuff, the lower mid stuff. And also it gives me, I like what it does to the transient. I happen to like this one. So after that, we come in here. My latency is on 20 milliseconds, but it feels like it's a lot faster than that. Okay. We have now the pluck. The pluck's only been brought down a little bit, and the pluck's basically filtering. It's changing the envelope using a filter as opposed to using like an all-pass filter, like a volume knob would. So you turn down the volume, and it will turn down, ideally, all the frequencies, right? That's what volume knobs are supposed to do, at least. This one uses, I believe, a low-pass filter. So the more you use it, the more it will filter out, and it will leave the top frequencies lingering, but for a much shorter amount of time while letting the lower frequencies linger longer. And you can configure a similar thing by just creating your own custom filter using one of the custom maps, custom shapes down here. But I look at it sort of as a low-pass filter with just a cool way of dealing with the high stuff. So I like it for what it gives as a transient. That's why that's also one of the features of it being a separate knob is the pluck knob. As far as that goes, I brought it down an octave, but I wrote it an octave up. So that's a little counterintuitive, but that's just what happened during the process. The EQ, nothing. So that's pretty much it. Let me real quick make sure I didn't EQ this other one. Yeah, nothing on the other EQ. And on the effects side of things, there is a reverb, and the reverb has been brought up again. And as far as the decay is concerned, the rest of the stuff I left pretty much alone. And again, I explained this. It's pretty crazy that they have a little multi-band compressor here. I mean, you have 3 knobs, but in a way, that's very intuitive. Like, you just move stuff up and down. Do you like what it did to your sound? So that's that. That's how I made this sound. And see, without that, it's missing like a lot. But as soon as I put it in, it's like, oh, ooh. And then I come over here and I listen to this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. That's it. Now, if I wanted to like get even closer, I'd probably have to start recreating mix elements and stuff to get myself closer. But if you want to remake this drop, getting this lead, it's mostly the way Marshmello does it. At least the stuff I noticed in his drops is it's very one sound, just very, very few sounds, but very creative melodies and lots of layers on the sound. It makes it very interesting because it responds differently when you hit different spots and stuff. And you're like, whoa, ebb and flow, bro. Like, what? So anyways, if you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon. Do you think I got close? Do you think I got far away? Like, what are your thoughts? I thought I did okay, but maybe some of you guys have made it known to me that sometimes you very disagree with whatever I did. So whatever, just make yourself heard down below, for good or for worse, and have a blessed day.
Rise again, ashes fall, fire brim. Dawn to dusk is not a must when the light starts to dim. You'll see the day when fire rules, no shield, no chance to fight it cruel. And when the ashes start to clear, you'll see the sun is nowhere near, floating in the void.